In this video, I'll be walking you through step-by-step how to plan the perfect trip to Oktoberfest in Munich, Germany. After 5+ years living there myself, going to the festival way too many times, and also helping friends plan their own trips as well. Now, in case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com. And this channel is all about practical travel tips from someone who's been there, done that, and drunk all the beer. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, be sure to like and subscribe for more. And be sure to stick until the end for a free Oktoberfest planning workbook. Now let's dive right into step 1, which is deciding when to go to Oktoberfest. Contrary to popular belief, Oktoberfest does actually begin in September, spending 2.5 weeks from late September to the beginning of October. The exact dates do change every year, so be sure to double check the dates before you start planning. Generally speaking though, the event lasts 16 days, ending on the first Sunday of October and beginning on the Saturday 2 weekends before that. There is a big exception though to keep in mind. Sometimes the festival will be extended to last 17 or 18 days if German Unity Day, which is on October 3rd, falls on either the Monday or Tuesday after the 16th day, in which case the festival gets extended until that day. Kind of complicated, and you know what, you can just Google the dates for your specific year, but this is just to help you understand the logic behind why some years the festival lasts longer than others. Now, when you do look at your potential travel dates, what I would highly recommend is you pick weekdays. Many people assume that weekends are the best time to go to Oktoberfest, but to be honest with you, unless your work requires you to go on a weekend instead of a weekday, then I would highly advise against going on a weekend just because it gets so unbearably busy. And as a result, the associated travel costs like flights and hotels do also skyrocket as well. Honestly, Oktoberfest is such an unhinged party that even if you go on a weekday, it's still going to be such a fun time. So you don't need to wait until weekends to have the best party. I promise weeknights are not lame. They're still so much fun and definitely more bearable than when you go on weekends, and it looks like this. There's also discounted family days on Tuesdays, and a unique church service in the Marstall tent on the first Thursday if you're looking for something a little different. That said, I must admit there are compelling reasons to visit on a weekend as well, so long as you're fully ready for the crowds. So the first weekend has a lot of fun events. There's the opening day keg tapping at the Schottenhamel tent, for instance, and that's when the mayor of Munich actually comes and taps the first keg, and then finally everyone at the festival is allowed to drink. The flip side of going on the first day though is that you're actually not allowed to have any beer until this first keg is tapped. And so if you do the math, the doors open at 10 a.m. That leaves 2 hours for you to kind of just sit at your table, have some breakfast, drink some soft drinks, but you won't be able to have beer until that first keg is tapped. So do keep that in mind. There can be quite a fun procession though on the opening day in each tent, so it is a unique experience in itself, but do know that you're not going to get access to beer right away. On the first weekend as well, there tends to be a traditional dress and hunters parade on the first Sunday too, so that's really fun to watch as well. The second weekend is known locally as the Italian weekend. So this is, I'm not even joking, a weekend where it's very well known that busloads of Italians will just come up from Italy, get absolutely obliterated, and then get back on the bus to go back to Italy, most of the time without even spending the night in Munich. I have no idea how this became a thing, but you will meet many drunk Italian people on the second weekend, so whether that's a pro or a con for you, I'll leave that up to you to decide, but that's definitely an interesting quirk to be mindful of. There's also usually bands performing on the steps on the second Sunday as well, with special guests like the mayor who comes to conduct. The third weekend is usually a lot of fun as well, although there aren't too many special events that take place until the final day, when they have a special gun salute at noon, and some tents will actually have a special final sentimental sparkler lighting where they'll sing a special song and everyone waves sparklers, and it's very emotional because all the servers get to finally pocket all their cash and go home. So that's definitely an interesting experience to have on your radar as well. Now, in terms of how long to plan your Oktoberfest trip for, I would say 3 nights is the absolute minimum to ensure you have a good, well-rounded experience in Munich. In case you didn't know, Oktoberfest is massive. There's 14 large tents and over 20 small tents, plus plenty of beer gardens and more stuff to do in the actual city of Munich. So just coming for 1 or 2 days isn't really going to let you experience the full spectrum of what makes Munich such an amazing city. For a nice, well-rounded experience, I would recommend you have at least one relaxed day when you come to Oktoberfest during the day. You can actually appreciate the grounds, check out a few rides, see what the festival is really like. Then also one rowdier evening when you get the full experience, you are dancing on the benches, having a good time, full party mode, and a day for rest and recovery as well. So that's why I really recommend 3 days. Otherwise, you don't really get to experience the full thing. So with all that information in mind, be sure to pick the best dates for your trip, and then let's move on to step 2, which is booking your flights. Now, honestly, you should book your flights as soon as possible for your Oktoberfest trip just because, of course, demand goes way up. So to get the best possible fares, you want to book in advance. I do have a full video all about finding cheap flights to Europe if you want to check out the step-by-step process. But generally speaking, this is what I do. First, I'll hop onto Google Flights and type in my departure airport or potential departure airports if there's flexibility there. Then I'll type in my rough dates and destination, so in this case, Munich. From there, I have a look at prices, maybe have a heart attack. And if you have some flexibility on when you fly in, it's often worth it to click over to this grid view over here and see how the prices change depending on when you fly in and out. Now, one tip I do have though, is if the flights to Munich already seem crazy expensive, it might be worthwhile to look into other airports that are nearby to secure a better deal, especially if you can have a longer trip where you can combine Oktoberfest with maybe another European destination. If you have that flexibility, then it might be worth just typing in Europe as the destination. That way you can see where other cheap flights might be going. And once you're in Europe, there's a lot of cheaper options like trains and buses and things like that to connect you to Munich in the end. Now, in regards to the general area of Munich itself, there are some other airports you can look into that service budget airlines, so you might be able to find a better deal. One of them is Memmingen, which is an hour and a half away from Munich Central Station through an express bus. And there's also Nuremberg, which is just over an hour away from Munich by train, and has a nice little airport that services budget airlines, and it's really well connected to Nuremberg city center as well. You can actually just take the U-Bahn from the airport to the main station and then head to Munich from there. So that's another possibility, especially because Nuremberg is a very pretty city as well. All in all, of course, flying direct is going to be the least hassle, but if the prices look absolutely insane, then do consider some of these alternatives as well. After your flights to Oktoberfest have been secured, it's time to tackle another huge expense, which is of course where to stay. Now again, I will say the earlier you can book the better, just because all the reasonably priced places tend to get snapped up really quickly. On my website, I do have more detailed guides about neighborhoods to stay, recommended places to stay, but just generally speaking, here's a quick overview so you have an idea of the different options. So officially, Munich is divided into 25 boroughs. But all the interesting stuff for tourists is mostly clustered around the 7 to 8 boroughs in the middle. Luckily, Oktoberfest is located in one of these. The festival can be found at Theresienwiese, which is part of the Ludwigsvorstadt-Isarvorstadt borough. Staying in any hotel in this neighborhood is going to put you within walking distance to the festival grounds, and you're also going to be close to the action to a lot of other fun stuff in Munich as well. The downside, of course, is it's going to be super expensive and going to be very rowdy and loud as well. But the good news is Theresienwiese is very well connected by public transport to many other places in the city. So you don't necessarily need to stay in this specific neighborhood in order to have an easy commute home. In my opinion, staying somewhere that's farther away from the festival grounds, but still on a connecting U-Bahn or S-Bahn line is probably the smarter option, and way more budget friendly as well. So with that in mind, in my opinion, the best place you can stay in Munich for Oktoberfest is a nice hotel by a U3, U4, U5, or U6 stop. I say this because there are actually 8 different entry points to the festival site, and the 4 U-Bahn stations near these entrances belong to the U3, U4, U5, and U6 lines. So as long as you book a hotel that is close to a stop that's on one of these lines, then you have a direct connection to the festival site. That requires no transfers, which is especially ideal after a few beers. Now, to browse and filter through different options at once, usually what I do is I'll hop on booking.com and use their map view, toggling on any filters that are important to me. So usually I'll look for hotels that are a rating of 8 or above, and possibly free cancellation if my trip isn't 100% confirmed. But I will say a lot of hotels remove free cancellation for this period because honestly, they don't need to offer free cancellation for them to book up. Again, I have a full video about how to find the best hotel deals in Europe, so be sure to check that out for a more detailed step-by-step. Now, if you're on a budget and you think staying at a hotel is going to be too expensive, my advice would kind of be just to look for hostels or guest houses that are in these same locations, like the different U-Bahn lines that I recommended. Or in terms of the cheapest possible way you can do Oktoberfest, there are some camping options that are available. There's a few different places that offer this, but the most popular one is definitely Stoke Travel, where the cost is about 60 euros a night, and that includes your tent, your breakfast, and your dinner. And honestly, you're not going to find a better deal than that. Do note that this is very much a budget backpacker option. It's probably not for the faint of heart if you don't like noise, if you don't like mess, if you don't like sharing campground space with hundreds of very drunk people. This is not going to be the option for you, but if you just want to have a good time and you want to do Oktoberfest as cheaply as possible, then definitely look into it. I'll be linking everything in the description as well. Now, with accommodation figured out, it's time to move on to the next step, which is booking Oktoberfest table reservations if you need them. This is one of the biggest sources of stress for first-timers because they're really worried they're not going to be able to get a table. But don't stress, here's what you need to know. As I said before, Oktoberfest is home to 14 large tents and over 20 smaller tents. Each are unique in their decor and vibe. They also serve different beers and have their own separate reservation systems, from sleek online reservation portals to more old school ones that up until recently were fax only. Most first-time visitors will probably want to go to a big tent for the full Oktoberfest experience. The small tents are nice, but most of the time these are locals who have long-standing reservations, and they're there to have their own separate celebrations a bit farther away from the tourist masses, so it is a fun experience, but it can be harder to get into these tents, and it's not really the same large beer tent experience that a lot of people imagine when they picture Oktoberfest. Now, something that's very important to note is that reservations are actually not mandatory, and it is 100% free to enter the festival grounds at Oktoberfest. So you really don't need to be worrying about reserving a table unless you're traveling in a larger group of, say, 6 to 10 people. And that's because if you're coming on your own or just in a smaller group, usually there are tables that are reserved for walk-ins, and it's quite easy to just chat to some strangers and then slide in at the end of their tables. And in most cases, you can only book reservations per table, so that'll be 10 people, and usually you do have to prepay for the beer and food vouchers in advance, so it doesn't really make sense to pre-book a table unless you have a larger group, or unless you have a bunch of cash to spend. Now, if you do decide you want to book a reservation, the first step is deciding which of all these different tents you want to make a booking for. Because unfortunately, every single tent has their own reservation system, so you do need to make this decision early on. I do have a full video and article about all the different main tents in Oktoberfest, but generally speaking, here are my favorites. Firstly, there's the Hacker Festhalle, which is nicknamed Bavarian Heaven. A good time is always guaranteed in this tent, and the decor itself is super cute. There's big puffy clouds, and then all around the tent, they have these painted Bavarian motifs. So you'll find different paintings of Bavarian landmarks, which I think is very cool. The crowd here tends to be on the younger side, so it's always a really fun party vibe, especially in the evening. I also really love the Schottenhamel tent. So if you're paying attention, this is the tent where the mayor will actually go tap the first keg on the opening day of the festival. So the reason I love this tent is because the vibe is always really fun, the band there is great, but they also have these unique table formations where the benches and tables are actually arranged in a square. So this actually makes it a lot easier to speak to the people at your table, and they also have nets underneath the table where you can leave your purse or different belongings so that it doesn't need to just be on the floor, which I think is really, really great. If you want something more low-key, the Ochsenbraterei is one of my favorites as well. Great combination of really good food and also a fun vibe in the evening. As you can probably guess based on the name, they are best known for their ox specialties, and I've tried loads of things on the menu here. It's always super tasty. In terms of tents I would personally avoid, first off, there's the Hofbräu-Festzelt, which I admit is a super beautiful tent aesthetically, but because of the international recognition of the Hofbräu brand name, this tent does tend to bring the worst possible kinds of tourists, and it can be really rowdy here and just generally not the best time. Most locals would tend to avoid this tent, and so if you're looking for a messy party atmosphere, this might be a good one, but personally, it's not really my vibe. I would also personally avoid the Fischer-Vroni tent, which unfortunately is very cute. There's a big boat in the middle, a nice band, but as you can guess from the name, their main specialty is grilled fish and fish specialties. So if you go to this tent, especially during lunchtime, it is going to stink of fish. And so if that's not your vibe, then this is maybe a tent you want to skip. In any case, make sure you do plenty of research about which tents you want to go to, because realistically, unless you're there for the entire time, you're probably not going to be able to visit every single tent and then decide from there whether or not you want to book a table. But again, if you're in a small group, it's not necessary. Another option, if you don't mind paying for convenience and like a guaranteed shot at a table, is there are certain companies that will bring you as like a tour group to a tent, and they'll have booked out tables of reservations in advance already. So you can book a tour with them and then they'll bring you and you'll have a guaranteed spot at a table. I'll link a few of these in the description. If you are doing reservations though, do keep in mind that these reservations tend to open very early in the year. In fact, as of March, most of the tents will have already opened up their reservation systems. Now let's move on to the next step, which is planning your Oktoberfest budget and also the different activities that you'll be doing. Unfortunately, Oktoberfest does get more and more expensive every year, especially when it comes to the price of beer. But it does help to be prepared so that there are fewer surprises once you actually arrive. So do know that the price of beer does depend on the tent, but an official list of the prices does get published on the official Oktoberfest website every year, so be sure to check that out in advance of your trip so that you don't have a heart attack when the server comes with your initial round, because it can be very, very expensive. Last year, I believe the beers were priced between 13.60 and 15.30 euros per liter. adding on a nice tip, which is always a good idea if you want the server to come back and actually serve you, you can expect to pay 15 to 20 euro per mass of beer. Apart from drinks, food can be quite pricey as well, with main dishes ranging from 16 euro for smaller items like sausages to 30 euro and beyond for large dishes like pork knuckle. Much pricier than most restaurants in the city, which FYI will probably serve all these same dishes for much cheaper. And while entry is free, pretty much every other activity and ride is going to cost you, ranging from 5 euro for the smaller rides, up to 12-ish euro for the big rides like the Olympia looping roller coaster and the Ferris wheel. All in all, I would plan to spend at least 100 euro a day at minimum at Oktoberfest. And do keep in mind that cash is still king, and while there are ATMs on site, there's usually lots of fees or lots of lineups, so make sure you bring cash with you to the festival. In addition to budgeting your money, don't forget to also budget your time. Oktoberfest is absolutely massive, so it does pay to be prepared and have an idea of activities you don't want to miss. Here are some classic experiences that I personally think every visitor should enjoy. First is a visit to the Teufelsrad, the Devil's Wheel, which is an old spinning wheel game that has been taking place for over 100 years at Oktoberfest. Every round, they call up different groups of people to come up on a large spinning wheel. Then anyone who wants to participate flings himself onto this wheel that begins to spin and spins faster and faster until everyone is off. This provides endless entertainment, trust me. Another fun ride for people watching is the toboggan. This one involves zipping up on a quick conveyor belt, then climbing through a little course before rushing down a big slide. Of course, this is much funnier when all the participants are very drunk. And if you want a unique souvenir, these gingerbread hearts are really good to buy. Many people don't realize this, but there is actually a stall where you can get customized cookies made, so that's a really fun potential souvenir. So don't miss Maptel's Herzmalerei for that. For something a little quirkier, a lot of people don't realize that the Lady Bavaria statue that's on the Oktoberfest grounds is actually hollow on the inside. And yes, you can climb her. That sounds a bit wrong. But yes, you can climb up her for a very unique perspective over the festival. So definitely don't miss that if you want something very unique to do. Again, I'll be linking way more resources in the description, but it does pay to have a game plan because there's so much fun stuff to do at Oktoberfest, and it's easy to get distracted and overwhelmed and miss stuff. Now, with your money and time budgets roughly allocated, it's time to move on to the next step, which is deciding what to pack. Generally speaking, if you're going to Oktoberfest, odds are you probably want to dress up in traditional gear. Now, this isn't mandatory, no one's going to kick you out for wearing jeans, but it is very fun, and when else are you going to get a chance to dress up like this? So I definitely recommend getting into the spirit of it and getting a proper outfit. Generally, the outfit of choice for women is a dirndl, like what I'm wearing, and that's typically made up of a blouse, a dress, and an apron. Usually purchased as a set, but they can be sold separately as well. Generally, the skirt of the dress should go past the knee, and there are tons of different styles out there, ranging from the more traditional to the more modern. For men, the outfit of choice is the almighty lederhosen, translated literally to leather pants, and they look like this. Usually they're paired with a shirt, and the most traditional color is actually white, although many shops will be selling plaid shirts that are colored like blue and red. Now, these are sort of the base outfits you can expect at Oktoberfest, but you'll definitely notice that many locals will have way more. So they'll also have cool vests, cool jackets, lots of different accessories. And the main reason for that is really these outfits are actually their formal attire. So a lot of the time they'll be wearing this to church or other formal events like weddings. And that's why it's important you don't just buy a cheap imitation or knockoff off of Amazon. Anything that looks like a Halloween costume should probably be avoided because it is quite obnoxious and you're probably better off just wearing regular casual clothes. Personally, I would advise just waiting until you get to Munich to either buy or rent one because A, it's a super fun experience to go shopping for one, and B, you're more likely to find something that's more authentic. If you do want to secure one in advance though, one company I love is called Wear Dirndl. They're based in the States and they have lots of really funky and unique designs. I have a few from them that I really love. Now finally, we're on to the next step, which is deciding what else you'll be doing in Munich. I know I'm so biased because I used to live there, but Munich is truly an amazing city with so much to do. So don't just come for Oktoberfest, make sure you do actually go out and explore the rest of the city as well. And if you need help with that, I've already uploaded videos all about the best things to do in Munich, as well as Munich travel tips and a Munich 3-day itinerary. Like I said, I'm pretty obsessed. Generally speaking though, if you had to, I would say the main sites in Munich's Old Town are all doable within a day, starting in Marienplatz and then just kind of walking between all the old city gates. Some main sites of interest include the Frauenkirche, the Viktualienmarkt, Odeonsplatz, and then outwards to Hofgarten. You can also end your day with a relaxed stroll through the English Garden, which is one of the largest city parks in the world, with a choice of beer gardens or places to relax. If you have the time, a second day would definitely be ideal if you wanted to go out to other parts of the city like the Olympic Park, which is really cool and has a lot of unique architecture, and Nymphenburg Palace as well, which has some really stunning grounds. Then again, if you have a bit more time, you can add on another day trip. So Neuschwanstein Castle, for instance, is a very popular one, but there's loads of beautiful lakes. You can also go over to Salzburg in Austria. Really, there's so many possibilities. So all in all, I hope this video was helpful. Be sure to check out this link for my free Oktoberfest planning book, and let me know in the comments if you have any more questions. I'll see you next time. Bye!